I'm Dr. Deb Butler, and you are listening to Thinner Peace and Menopause and Beyond. This is episode number 420. Welcome to Thinner Peace and Menopause and Beyond. This is Dr. Deb Butler, Master Life and Weight Coach, and as always, your coach. If you're a woman and you're smart and you're successful and you've been struggling with weight your whole life, and now menopause is making it harder than ever, and you are ready to make this the last time you ever have to go on a diet again, then this podcast is for you. Stay tuned. Well, hello, all my dear friends all over the world. How are you today? I myself am getting ready for a holiday weekend. I'm going to go down to the lake. We call it the lake. It's the Lake of the Ozarks. And my in-laws and my son and his wife, who is like my daughter, and my 3 grandchildren, we are all gathering together and we are having a little party. And these are like my favorite things to do. As you know, being with my family and feeling the love is my favorite thing. And, it doesn't get past me, and I don't want it to get past you, that spring is here and that there's a lot of interesting holidays around this time too, regardless of your religion. There seem to be holidays for all religions, and they're all quite miraculous. And I find it interesting that it all happens in spring. Spring is renewal. And what do we as human beings do to bring spring on? The answer to that, my friend, is we do nothing because we have got nothing to do with it. But every year around this time, spring springs up, and all the things that are supposed to happen without any of us pointing our fingers, making a list. It just happens. And these holidays are kind of reminders because of all the miracles that happen during all of them, is that miracles are possible too. And maybe even the whole thing about spring in itself is a miracle. Like, how the heck do these trees know what to do? How do these flowers know that it's time to bloom, or the birds know that it's time to come back, or that anything knows anything? It's not from any help from us. That's all I know, my dear friends. So as I sit here talking to you today and wanting to talk about urges and willpower, I can't stop but just take a minute. And number one, be grateful for this time of year and for all the miracles that have occurred during this time of year, many, many, many years ago, that we still celebrate, and that without any help from any human being, they still happen. It is really something to take in. And the other thing about miracles, I'm kind of getting off topic a little bit, but another thing about miracles that I love, because I was talking to one of my clients who felt like she had a miracle. And with her miracle is that she basically just had a different way of thinking about herself and her body. Her perception changed. And when her perception changed and she started thinking about herself differently in a better light, and she really believed it, thanks to a lot of good coaching, it felt like a miracle to her. And Marianne Williamson, who is a wonderful spiritual leader and has been around for a long time and is really big in the Course of Miracles. But one of the things that she said that I have never forgotten is that she defined a miracle as a change in perception from fear to love. And you know what? I think as a coach and coaching people's minds, that's basically what I do every day, is I just help people see things in a different way. And instead of in this fear kind of way, it's more in this love kind of way. And, love feels so much better than fear. And thoughts that make you feel those positive feelings when you can really believe them feel really, really good. So, what is a miracle? I want you to think about it. And maybe you have all kinds of miracles happening around you and you just never called them a miracle. Start looking. You might see a lot of them. Now, I'm a little off topic, but this is really what I wanted to talk about today. And this could be a miracle too, because when my clients can actually sit around food that they once thought they couldn't sit around because they believe the food had power over them. And then once they get to the point where they realize that they have the power, that they're empowered, and that food doesn't do it to them anymore, it's like a miracle. But really, all it is a change in perception. So, what I wanted to talk to you about today is a little bit more about urges and willpower and how to create changes in perception in your mind to create those kind of miracles where the kinds of food where you believed they had power over you, you can change the way you think and you know that you're the one that makes the decision and food is just food. So, what I wanted to do is I wanted to read a letter that I received from a listener about one of my urge podcasts. I've really received a lot of letters and questions about urges. It seems to be something that interests all of you, and all of you find it a bit difficult too, which it is. But I just want to read you what she wrote to me, and then I want to answer it to her on this podcast. But I know it'll help all of you. Her name is Josephine, and this is what she wrote to me. Hi, Dr. Deb. My friend and I have been listening to all of your podcasts, and I'm pretty sure I have listened to every single one of them. While I'm listening to you, I'm answering you out loud and saying, yes, that's me. That's what I do. I also listen attentively and sometimes listen to your podcast twice so that I know exactly how to handle the situation. And once again, I say out loud, that makes sense. That's so interesting. I can see how that would work. So I begin the conversation with myself when I'm having an urge for the chocolate cupcake that's in my fridge. Every conversation starts the same. I know, sweetheart, that you really want that treat. I know how hard this is for you, but we promise that we're going to allow the urge and work past it. It's not going to make you feel good. Something like that. Before I can finish, my brain instantly says, stop. I'm not listening to you right now. I'm having the cupcake. And it's as if I eat it so quickly so I don't have to listen to the conversation in my head anymore. I know you've been talking a lot about urges in these last few podcasts, and I understand completely what you're saying and actually love the beach ball analogy. But I'm having a hard time understanding how I get my brain to listen and allow the urge and eventually be able to do without the treat. Thank you for your podcasts. My friend and I look forward to listening to them every week. We talk to each other about what you say and compare the stories in our own lives. Sincerely, Josephine and her friend. She puts in parentheses, Maria. And I know a lot of you probably think a lot like she does and have the same conversations going on in your head too. So I want to reply to her and also give all of you some pointers on urges. Because here's the thing about urges urges are negative emotion. So, those of you who have my companion workbook, and all of you can have it, it's free. All you have to do is go to drdebbutler.com/change and you can get it. I was going to say /work with me, but that's if you want to work with me, and that's not what I'm talking about right now. So if you want this free companion workbook, you go to drdebbutler.com/change, CHANGE, and you can get this book for free. It's the first phase of my thinner peace process, and in it is a scale for the emotional hunger scale. And a lot of people have questions about this emotional hunger scale compared to the physical hunger scale, and that it's a little bit more difficult to understand because it doesn't really have to be happy, sad, mad, glad. There can be so many other different types of emotions that you probably don't even think about. And one of those emotions are urges. So, an urge is considered an emotion, an urge or desire, or an urgent desire is a feeling. And that feeling can be given a number system, just like physical hunger can. Like for being physically hungry, you can go from a -10 to a +10. -10 is starving, +10 is stuffed. On the emotional hunger scale, you can go from -10, which is the worst you can feel, to a +10, which is the best you can feel. And if you get my little booklet, you'll be able to see the scale and it will probably make a little bit more sense. But with the emotional hunger scale, when we're looking at eating when we're not hungry, we're usually looking at the negative portion of the emotional hunger scale. So it's the numbers that go from 0 to a -10. Now, here's the thing. An urge can be rated at a 0, which means you don't feel it at all, or an urge can be rated at a -10, which is so strong you end up sitting in the refrigerator and living in the refrigerator. It's just that strong. Now, I think what Josephine is talking to me about when she's talking about this cupcake is what I want you all to understand is you just don't start, you're not going to be able to allow all urges all the time in the beginning. That is for sure. But one of the things that I noticed with Josephine that I want her to notice is that she's noticing that she has urges. She notices that she's giving into them, which is also a beginning of becoming aware. Now, if I were coaching Josephine, the first thing that I would do is I would try to figure out how strong this number is of this urge for this chocolate cupcake. Because this is my guess, and this is how I see it with clients, is when I start going through food journals and I start seeing a lot of joy eats on there, and we would look at the chocolate cupcake as a joy eat. It might not be a mindful joy eat. It may be more of a fog joy eat, but still it's in the joy category because it's considered a non-nutritious food. It tastes good. So with Josephine, my guess is that probably what happens to her is that with these cupcakes, she has very, very strong thoughts about these cupcakes, about how much she loves them, just like she calls them a treat. The first thing that I would do is I would never call it a treat again. I would just call it a cupcake. And a cupcake can just be a cupcake. But when we start saying things like, I love those cupcakes, or they're my favorite treats, or I deserve a treat, or it is a treat. Like when you think about dogs and you give them a treat, you make them sit, you make them stay. You know what I'm saying? It's like, why do we even want to call it a treat? Let's just call it a cupcake. Now, this is what I want to say about cupcakes for Josephine. My guess is that those cupcakes, when she thinks about them and they're around, the thoughts that she has that maybe I love them or I'm not going to be able to resist them or it's so hard, she probably already has a lot of things in her head that she says to herself that immediately creates a very strong urge. My guess is that urge for her is way beyond a -5, maybe a -6, -7, -8, very, very strong. Now, what I show my clients as we start journaling food and start looking at the emotional hunger scale, what I always tell them and what I would tell Josephine right now is I would rate that number when you want that cupcake. And if it's really strong, like a -7 or a -8, it's probably going to be pretty difficult. But here's the thing, you can start strengthening your urge muscles by realizing when you do allow urges. Now, allowing an urge meaning that you go ahead, you feel it, you feel how bad you want it, you let it go through your body without eating it. That is basically the definition of allowing an urge. Whereas resisting an urge, which is more like willpower, it feels very tense and tight in your body. And the whole time, it's almost like you feel like you're holding on to something to keep from eating it, even if you don't eat it. But resistance, that tightness, that willpower, sooner or later it will break and you'll eat it at some other time anyway. But when you learn how to allow these urges, how to let yourself feel them without eating them, that's where the muscle gets stronger. But here's the trick. I probably wouldn't start on the thing that has the strongest number on an urge. So if chocolate cupcakes for Josephine are negative eights, then when you're practicing and when you're doing your food journals, you really start looking for when you do see something that you want and you do have an urge, but it's not as strong. And this is the thing is you have to start really realizing in your body what these urges feel like when they're really strong and when they're not really strong. And that's why in past podcasts, I have recommended an urge worksheet that I use with my clients. And the purpose of an urge worksheet is to be able to, anytime you allow an urge to go through your body, anytime you want something but you don't eat it, you actually use the urge worksheet and you write it down. So, for instance, there's three topics or there's three columns on this urge worksheet. One is the object of your desire. Two is the unmanaged thought of the urge. And three is the managed thought of the urge. So, for instance, if there's a cookie and that's the object of desire, and I might have a thought that, oh, I love cookies. And as soon as I think the thought, I love it, I immediately can feel this vibration in my body wanting to eat it. That's the urge. It's created by the thought that I love it. And it's unmanaged because it's not really what I want. But if I don't eat it, I might say something to myself, such as, you're not hungry. You don't need to eat it now, or you can have it later, or you can have it if you still want it in an hour from now. I might say something like that. Any of those thoughts are considered managing thoughts if you don't eat it. And as you could tell from Josephine's letter, she's trying to use managing thoughts, but she's eating it. So it really, you wouldn't do an urge worksheet for when you're eating the cupcake. You would only use an urge worksheet when you allow the urge without eating it. But this is my guess for all of you. If you actually start creating an urge worksheet for yourself and you actually start doing food journals the way I tell you how to do them, then what you're going to notice, especially on the urge worksheet, is I tell my clients that every time you see something and your brain starts to say, that looks good, but you don't eat it because you say something to yourself like, just because you want it doesn't mean you need to eat it. Could be a managed thought, and you may not eat it. And it's kind of like letting the beach ball just come up from the water. You don't push it down. You're not resisting it. You let it come up. You feel it. And you go, just because you want it doesn't mean you need to eat it. It's a managing thought. But when you're doing this, measure your urges, measure the urges that you can allow. Now, what I would do is, and what you probably are doing and don't even know it, is you probably are allowing urges and not eating certain foods and not realizing you're doing it because it doesn't feel that hard. But that's where you have to notice that you are doing it. That's where you have to say, oh my gosh, I did want that. But it went through your brain so fast, you thought you wanted it, and then you said something to yourself that managed it, that it was gone in a minute. But the reason I have my clients do these urge worksheets is because it lets your brain start to see how strong you're getting with urges. So what you might see on an urge worksheet is more like -4 urges or -3 urges or -5 urges. And when you start to see, it's kind of like lifting weights. You start with light weights and you move up to heavy weights. Once you can start seeing that you know how to allow an urge, it's just a weaker urge. You start feeling more confident. You start understanding what that feeling really feels like, and you start to see that you're a lot stronger than you think. So, what I'm saying to Josephine and Maria and to all of you who are listening is that if you're just starting to work on urges, or you're just starting to listen to this podcast, or you've been listening to it for a long time, please don't use the food that creates the strongest urge number and work with what I'm saying to you. Do it with something that is not as strong, but you're still doing it, but you're not aware you're doing it. Become aware of how you're managing weaker urges, because the more you're aware that you can handle urges, that you can allow urges, that you can feel urges, then when those stronger urges come up, it's not going to feel so foreign and so difficult, because your brain's going to go, oh, I know what to do. Oh, we've done this before, as opposed to, oh my God, it's a cupcake. Oh my God. Really, seriously. In the end, Josephine, it's just a chocolate cupcake in the refrigerator. And the way it has less power is by you learning how to lift these urge weights. So start with the weaker ones and then move up. And you might find that the chocolate cupcakes may get easier. But in the end, it will be uncomfortable. Like in the end, when you start lifting weights and you start at 5 or 10 pounds, and then you're up to 20 or 30 pounds and you're doing 30 pounds, you're lifting them. It's a little harder. You got to breathe a little bit more. Sometimes you want to quit, but you've worked your way up and you know you're getting stronger, and so you do it. And that's what I'm encouraging you to do here. Start with weaker urges and move your way up and empower yourself that you do know what to do, that you do know how to handle these urges. It's just sometimes they're so strong. That's all it is. But strong urges can be handled and managed too, especially when your brain knows that it knows how to do it. And the urge worksheet is a perfect example of doing it. Or just as soon as you're through listening to this podcast today, the next time you're out and about, you notice when you see something that you want and you don't eat it, what did you say to yourself? See, we don't notice this stuff. We're not aware of this stuff, so we don't realize we're doing it all the time. But you have to if you want to get stronger. You can't start with a -10. You got to start lighter. You can't start with 50 pounds of weight that you're lifting. You got to start with 5 or 10. Same analogy. Okay, Josephina Maria, I hope this helps you. And for all my dear listeners, when you're listening to this podcast, give yourself a lot of credit for all the work that you've done. Remember that there are miracles everywhere if you just see them. And know that a chocolate cupcake is just a cupcake. And you know what? Once it just becomes another thing, that becomes a miracle. So listen, you guys, you know I'm not going to end this podcast without saying this. Whatever you do and wherever you go, please, please, please be very, very kind to yourself. And I will see you next week. Bye-bye. If you're loving my podcast and you would like some more information to be able to follow along with, then please go to drdebbutler.com/change, and you can get a free copy of my companion book that goes with this podcast that I refer to in many different episodes. That is drdebbutler.com/change, CHANGE.